So I don't really know where to start this video, but on June 20th, 2020, I decided and quit my 9 to 5 job at Kmart. Well, more accurately, my 7 to 3, sometimes 4 to 8, but most of the time 7 to 12 job at Kmart. And I worked for the Kmart in Broad Beach Pacific Fair on the Gold Coast for just over about 3.5 years. And while I wasn't exactly a full-time employee, I was averaging about 22 hours or so every week. So it was my main source of income. But that was over 2 months ago. And because I've been postponing making this video for the last 2 months, I've forgotten a lot of the reasons why I wanted to quit in the first place. I kind of equate it to graduating high school for me. I felt as though those 5 years of high school, I hated it. I hated waking up every day and going to high school. The routine was rubbish and I didn't want to be at school, and it was never really my thing. Leading up to it, you're so excited and you can't wait for it to finish. And then as soon as you graduate, I just remember those I want to say like a year and a half after I graduated, I would always look back on high school and almost miss it and only really remember the good stuff about it. And I feel like the same thing is happening to me now. It's been 2 months since I've left my 9 to 5, and even though it was minimum wage and I know there was many reasons why I left, when I think about it and I look back, I almost miss it in a weird way. So before I pick apart the reasons why I left my job, I think it's best to ask someone that knows me better than most and had to actually put up with me for probably about 8 months leading up to me actually quitting my job on all the reasons why I wanted to quit. Hey Conchita.
Hey Lolita.
Why did I quit my job?
Why'd you quit your job?
Yeah.
Well, you weren't happy.
Hmm.
It seemed as though you needed more, and you didn't want to get complacent with the stability and the comfort of, always getting shifts and being in an environment which was very kind to you. You wanted to sort of shock your system. That's what I got from it anyway.
Yeah. Okay, fair. Thanks. Bye.
No worries. Yeah.
So ultimately what Connor said was true. I wasn't happy, and that was the main reason of why I wanted to leave. And I did want to shock my system. I felt like I was complacent and I was just in this routine and this comfort zone that was really only giving me a minimum wage and very little fulfillment. And I knew that, being at Kmart and being in a retail job, it wasn't really scalable for me. There was nothing up there for me to want to achieve. And it's so hard for me to explain all of this and to actually, voice it out to a camera and try and make as much sense as I do when I'm talking to a human. But I'm going to quote Henry David Thoreau's most frequently quoted saying, and that is, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." See, I had heard Joe Rogan speak on his podcast about this exact topic. He talked about quiet desperation and how men and women, are so complacent and used to, their comfort zone that they live every day sort of hating their life and wishing that they did something else when they were younger or when they had the opportunity. And while I genuinely really enjoyed my time at Kmart and I actually loved the people I was working with, they taught me so much. They were the friendliest bunch, but the majority of the people that I saw every single day were in their 50s, in their 60s, and they hated their life. And it was really sad for me to see that because these were really great people and it had nothing to do with them not being smart enough, not being qualified enough or anything like that. You see, it was so blatantly obvious for me that it had nothing to do with the people themselves. Like, they all had that voice inside them, that hunger to want to do more. Like, they wanted a better life. They weren't happy with where they were. They didn't like going in at 7 a.m. and clocking off at 3 for minimum wage. They didn't like the routine and doing every single thing over and over and over again for years and years, but they all shared one common factor, and that was that they shut that voice down. They found excuses and reasons to sort of tell themselves why they should stay at their job and why they shouldn't leave and go for something else. And I felt that, unfortunately, fear and just overall comfort zone affected all of them. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm really not saying there's anything wrong with being a retail worker or earning minimum wage. It's not about that. What I'm saying is wrong is being unhappy where you are in life and shutting that voice down just because it's easier to shut it down than it is to overcome it, than it is to get out of your situation. And that's my main focus point, and I believe that that's the real reason why I decided to pull myself out of there. Now, the people I worked for, they were great. The managers were great. They all were really nice to me. I felt like I was one of the favorites at the time, so I felt really comfortable. I genuinely enjoyed going to work. I didn't like what I was doing. I felt like, I was meant for more, and obviously that just ties into how much money I was making. But that's extremely personal. That's just the way I am in particular. Overall, though, the management was great. And the people that I was working with, all the oldies were fantastic, really. I genuinely learned so much from them. But it all comes to that, is that in the 3 and a bit years that I was working there, every single day they were complaining about their life. They were complaining about their job. They were complaining about everything. They hated their job. They hated Kmart. They grew this hatred for Kmart and the retail life. And as the years went by, and in particular my last year working at Kmart, I really did want to leave and I wanted to do more with my life. And I started talking to the full-timers because, I've now known them for 3 years, so I was in a very personal level with quite a lot of them. And I asked them about, if they had regrets on staying with Kmart, what they might have done different if they could go back to my age. And the funny thing was that every single one of them, without fault, all said they regretted staying with Kmart, that they wish they would have done something else when they were younger. Now, they all recommended and they all pushed me to leave, not in a bad way, but in a sort of motherly, fatherly type figures trying to push a son to do more with their life, right? And yeah, it just became so obvious that they were almost willing to, instead of being in sort of quiet desperation, they were almost being loud desperate with me and being so honest and really being almost selfless to admit that they had chosen the wrong thing 30 odd years ago and to push me into doing something better with my life. And for that, I will forever be grateful to so many of the people that I worked with at Kmart. But it wasn't all positive. Yes, at work, everyone was being brutally honest with me and telling me about how I have to quit and why I have to quit and to not make the same mistakes they made, and everything was great. But when I talked to friends and family, most of the time they didn't want me to quit. They wanted me to keep working, and they thought that I was being reckless and that I was, not being strong enough and not, wanting to just do everything and just sort of push through it. But unfortunately, you have to shut the negativity out. You have to not really care so much what everyone else has to say and make up your own decision of what you think is best for you. And I'm really glad I trusted my gut, because today, as it stands, I'm actually making more money than what I was at Kmart. I'm in a better position in life and I enjoy it more. Yes, oddly enough, I kind of miss it. I miss working the retail life, and I miss, seeing my managers and having a laugh and doing all that stuff. But I just feel like it's the whole high school thing again, where I'm only remembering the good. I'm not remembering all the bad, and there was a lot of bad as well. But that's how it is with any job, not just mine. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that you should quit your job. No, I'm just kidding. Realistically, it all depends on your situation at the moment. I am fortunate enough, and I'm going to be very humble here and say that if it wasn't for my parents and me being able to live at home, I wouldn't have been able to quit my job. But because I have very supportive parents and, I am in that situation in life where I can just drop something, I chose to do it because I saw that I was making money elsewhere and didn't actually need my job. But if you're in a situation where you have kids, you have a mortgage, you have, bills, you have a lot of stuff to pay off, then you might want to balance everything up and sort of see if you can quit your job, because you can't afford to be as reckless as I was. Unfortunately, people are going to be very negative. And for me, a lot of my family and friends were very negative. They told me not to quit. They thought I was making a mistake and that, money's money and that I should just rough it out. But you kind of have to shut it out. You have to shut the negativity out. You have to really listen to yourself because you know what's best for you. No one is in your shoes and no one really knows what you should do for yourself. I had people telling me that it was the wrong time to quit, that I should be thankful for the job I had because of the pandemic that, was going on. And it's still going on. But I just knew that if I kept, reacting like the people around me react and sort of think of reasons to stay, that I was going to be there for the next 30 years, because as humans, we're just constantly going to trick ourselves and give ourselves reasons to stay. We're not going to give ourselves reasons to leave, because leaving is uncomfortable, because leaving is dangerous, because it's a risk, because you might make more money, but you might make less. And it's uncharted waters, and I feel like that's what I had to shut out. I had to shut out people saying, no, you can't leave during COVID, you can't leave during, all of this, you should be grateful. But the real reason is that there's no right time. Everyone tries to make the right choices and everyone tries to lead a perfect life, but the real reason is that no one knows what that path actually is like. And so that's why I pulled the trigger. So I hope that all makes sense, and me rambling on for whatever amount of minutes didn't bore you. But if you stay to the end, here's a video that YouTube thinks you'll like, and here is my last video, and you should probably subscribe as well because we do make really cool content.